Ahead of Game Week 13, I've asked my FPL experts for their top picks for this game week, and this is what they've come back with. So let's go and take a look and give my honest feedback. Now, before we dive into the players included in today's video, of course, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 15,000 subscribers by the end of the season, and it is only possible with your guys' help. Of course, I do feel like this first pick, of course, was going to be very popular amongst FPL experts. Of course, it is Bukayo Saka, back after kind of a few weeks where it's been a little bit iffy in terms of his fitness and his overall performances. However, with a fantastic fixture run coming up for Arsenal over the next 5 game weeks, him being back in form as well, that was an absolutely stupendous performance against Nottingham Forest at the weekend. A lot of people are looking at him. Obviously, that goes with, Erling Haaland not really delivering at the moment. Manchester City, of course, losing 5 Premier League games in a row as well. People are looking at this and maybe thinking, you know what, it might be time to sell off Erling Haaland and, of course, move to Bukayo Saka as a potential option and have a free midfield of Salah, Palmer and Saka, which would be absolutely ridiculously strong. It's something that I'm considering doing myself this game week. I've got the 2 free transfers. I'm looking at Bukayo Saka as a potential option because purely that run is absolutely incredible. I'm going to be keeping him probably all the way up until game week 18 if I was to do this move, then look to obviously, move back to Erling Haaland around game week 19. That would be the plan for my team. I'm a big fan of this one. Obviously, if you go and watch kind of the extended highlights or match of the day as well, if you're more an eye test manager, Saka was involved in absolutely everything Arsenal were doing creative-wise. And I just think, you know what, when he gets himself into these kind of situations, he is incredible. The only downside we do have, of course, is kind of his little bit of patchy sort of injury record and then playing into the Arteta mind games every single week. And something we are going to touch on a little bit later in today's video, it's something I covered in the transfer targets, is the amount of game weeks and, of course, Champions League and Carabao Cup games coming up as well. That potentially might impact Saka's minutes going forward as well, or could be a little bit of a hindrance because Arteta is somebody that will continually play Bukayo Saka in every single fixture. Regardless of if the man's leg's falling off, this guy will still be there every single week. But he's definitely a player I've got my eye on, so I'm in 100% agreement with my FPL experts on Bukayo Saka as a pick. Let's move on then, and this one's going to be a little bit different. It's kind of going to be in a 3-part segment. Now, first off, a lot of my experts were suggesting picking up Arsenal defenders, so Gabriel, Raya, Saliba, Timber. Now, rather than focusing on the individual players, I wanted to kind of, suggest why you might want to do that, or why you might even want to go for a double. Like we saw with the Saka graphic in the last section, the Arsenal fixtures are fantastic, and if we look at XG conceded so far this season, Arsenal currently find themselves in second. No real shock. I feel like some people have kind of written them off in the past few weeks and gone, yeah, they're an absolutely rubbish defence. I think a lot of that is game state. You have to look at some of the red cards they've been picking up, some of the low XG goals as well that have been scored against them, and on another day it goes their way, they pick up clean sheets and it's pretty much happy days. Everybody's, fairly happy with the performances and the points that Arsenal are getting. But now that they're back in second with XG, they also managed to keep a clean sheet this weekend. It seems like there's been a complete shift within the community and Arsenal are now back to being a good defence. That's the way it seems with my head anyway, or from what I've been seeing on my X timeline as well. And I definitely think there is scope to be not only bringing one defender in, but also looking to bring in 2 Arsenal defenders, whether that be a Raya or a Gabriel or a Saliba or Urian Timber, of course, who is the popular option at the moment, as he is the cheapest way into that backline at 5.5 million. To go along with that, of course, we do have the 11-5 data. If you want to go and check that out, I will leave a link in the description. Arsenal over the next 5 game weeks have got some absolutely cracking chances of keeping clean sheets, as we can see here. 42, 45, 40, 55 and 43% across the board over the next few weeks. No team really gets even close to that over the next few weeks in terms of clean sheet percentages as well. Obviously, I know Manchester City and Liverpool play each other this week, so that's obviously skewed their numbers slightly. But as you can see, Arsenal across the board for the next 5 fixtures are incredible. And I do imagine when the 11-5 data updates and includes match day 18, that is also going to be a very, very high number and probably will lead to them being the top team over the next 6 game weeks in terms of projected clean sheets. So it's looking good, not only from, previous data we've seen so far this season in terms of the XG conceded, but also that projected data going forward that 11FI has put together as well for decent kind of high probability chances of clean sheets. So not only, again, the single player, but also the double as well. But taking a look at the two that I think a lot of people are, of course, going to be looking at, it is going to be Gabriel. He's always got that attacking threat from corners. We've seen that twice already this season as well. Gets a decent amount of shots as well, as we can see here, compared to Yuri and Timber. Okay, expected goals, but it is mainly just corners that you will be obviously looking with this guy. Yuri and Timber has become quite a popular option, mainly down to the fact of his price point. Of course, the injury to Ben White as well. 5.5 million for him. Like I said, it is that cheapest way into the Arsenal defence from an outfield perspective. And if you are maybe looking at that cheaper way to get into that Arsenal defence and take full advantage of course, the decent fixtures that are coming up, the decent projected clean sheet odds as well, he could be the man that could obviously unlock that door for you. So that's an interesting one there. Again, though, my only concern, very similar to what I said with Saka, is the fact that minutes might be a little bit dicey over the next few. And I feel like the next graphic perfectly sums that up. So I'm going to move on to that one. It is, of course, the festive schedule. Now, obviously, this midweek, we do have Champions League. Arsenal are fully involved in that. Then we've got Game Week 13 at the weekend. Game Week 14 is a midweek round. Then we're back to Game Week 15 again at that weekend. So there's a lot of games already being played. Then on the 10th, Champions League round. Then the 14th, you've got yourself another Premier League round. Then in the midweek there, you've got the EFL Cup quarterfinals, which Arsenal are involved in. Then Game Week 17 on the 21st, Game Week 18 on the 26th, and Game Week 19 on the 29th of December. There is a hell of a lot of games coming up, and my big number one suggestion, a lot of FPL experts agreed with me when we were chatting and stuff. They said to me that their number one piece of advice going forward for the next few weeks is going to be picking players that are nailed, not heavy rotation risks, looking for players that are going to see decent minutes over the festive period. Because like I said, look how many Premier League games we've got coming up just in a short succession of time. Factor then obviously 2 Champions League rounds and an EFL Cup quarter-final round in there as well. There's some players that even the most 90-minute nailed men are probably going to see some rotation across this period as well. It's probably worth a little bit of probably investment into the bench as well, maybe buffing that out. Of course, if you've maybe got a few injured players on there, maybe just looking to get yourself a few cheaper options that could cover off some players if they do see some risk of rotation as well. So I do feel like this is also an important part of FPL for this busy festive period, making sure you are aware of the festive schedule that is about to come up. Obviously, being aware of the players that we need to be looking to target as well. Kind of not really looking at these flaky players that see around 60, 70 minutes or, occasionally get dropped from teams as well. We want to be looking at the guys that are playing 90 minutes week in, week out, and arguably preferably don't have, Champions League or Europa League or an EFL Cup quarter-final as well. That's the ideal scenario, but of course there are caveats to that. Certain players will break the mark and certain players will do exceptionally well in limited minutes during this period. There always is some cases where, it doesn't quite work out like the way that I'm suggesting. There will be some players that will see 60 minutes or benched in a couple, but they'll go absolutely big in some of these fixtures. But I think the rule for me personally is something I've always tried to do, is just pick nailed men, and it usually works out pretty well for me, to be honest. I'm not left with headaches, or I'm not left with players obviously being sat on my bench or stuff like that. So that is going to be my big takeaway from today's video for you guys. If anything else, you don't learn from today's video, this for me is going to be the big one. Right, let's finish up then. The last section is going to be all about forwards. I've put together my ideal Haaland replacements because I think that's what a lot of people are going to be doing obviously going to be looking to do this week, A lot of people are going to be jumping off Erling Haaland. Another blank at the weekend as well. Liverpool up next, and the fixtures aren't too appetizing going forward as well. So a lot of people are going to be looking for potential replacements. Obviously, I've included players at every single price bracket pretty much here because people will be able to get certain players in, like the Sakas, the Salahs, the Palmers, for, you know, a Jackson. They'll be able to, some teams with their budget will be able to do that. Some, on the other hand, will have to be looking more at the João Pedros, the Delaps, the Evan Nielsen's of the world. So I've kind of included a little bit of a range here. I feel everybody on this list is going to be a decent potential pickup. There's obviously one that I want to speak about that I don't think obviously falls into that category, but everybody else I think could be a decent replacement for Erling Haaland over the next few weeks. So let's dive straight in. Let's talk about Nicholas Jackson, the highest goal involvement on this list as well. And then, as you can see, the third highest expected goal involvement per 90 as well. Decent projected points from 11-5 over the next 3 game weeks, as we can see here. An absolutely mouth-watering tie in game week 14 with Southampton away. Of course, the only concern with Nicholas Jackson is going to be the 4 yellow cards. If he picks up another one, he will miss out. Imagine if it happens in the Villa game. You will be kicking yourself if that's the case for that one. Missing out on Southampton away would be an absolute ring stinger. But overall, I do feel like Jackson is going to be a decent pickup. Chelsea's fixtures long-term are absolutely incredible. All the way up realistically till around game week 29, you could hold him if you wanted to go that long without Haaland, or obviously if you're just looking for a different striker replacement. That's how long you could keep Nicholas Jackson. He's managing to put away his chances as well this season, which is something he wasn't doing last year. Also still creating a good amount of underlying data to also suggest he's a decent pickup. But like I said, it is those 4 yellow cards and something to just be wary with. Obviously, if he picks up one more, he will be suspended for 1 game. Next up, I wanted to compare Danny Welbeck and João Pedro. I feel like João Pedro is going to be the popular pick over the next few weeks. Of course, the Brighton fixtures are looking very, very succulent. The next 3 are just cracking. Both Leicester and Southampton at home. What more could you ask for, to be honest? I do feel like Danny Welbeck's stock has probably come down a little bit in the past few weeks. It's been quite a few weeks since he's last scored a goal. As we can see as well, his expected goal involvement per 90 is less than João Pedro. However, of course, João Pedro has seen less Premier League minutes so far this season. In terms of those predicted points, though, João Pedro is leading the way by a country mile, and I think that'll probably be down to the fact of penalties and stuff like that. Of course, though, the big concern is rotation. Now, we did see an early substitution coming off in the 62nd minute in the last game at the weekend. Obviously came off the bench in the last one. He is only just coming back from a long-term injury, so that is something to be wary of. Of course, as well, they do have a plethora of high-quality players that can also play in the 10 role, and that is a little bit of a concern for me. But I just think for the bargain bottom price of 5.6 million, can you really go wrong? I think if you've got bench cover over the next few weeks, like I said, can you really go wrong? And looking at those 3 fixtures coming up, especially the 2 home fixtures, the way that Brighton have been attacking so far this season, I'm a big fan of João Pedro. I think I would I think for me, he would be the pick I would go for over Danny Welbeck if I had to pick between the 2 right now. You're saving money, you're getting a penalty taker, better expected goal involvement, and better predicted points over the next 3 game weeks. A player that I feel like nobody's really speaking about this season. I was a little bit shocked to see how high his ownership still is. It is Ollie Watkins. Not a great fixture coming up in game week 13 away at Stamford Bridge, but following on from that, some pretty decent fixtures coming up for Aston Villa, playing some of the worst teams for XG conceded at home as well in Brentford and Southampton. He's got himself 8 goal involvements, which, as you can see on this list, would be joint third with Danny Welbeck. His underlying data as well in terms of expected goal involvement, he's currently sat 2nd on that list, and in terms of the predicted points, he's currently sat 2nd. So why are not more people talking about Ollie Watkins as a potential option? Well, again, going back to the fixtures as we saw, there's 2 Champions League rounds coming up for Aston Villa, of course, sandwiched in between this busy festive period. As well as that, there is just John Duran just sat there waiting, ready. I do feel like Duran will see some minutes over the festive period rather than Watkins. And obviously as well, the problem with Ollie Watkins compared to some of these other assets is we are paying £9 million. That's a lot of money to be spending on a guy that realistically is probably going to see maybe 60 to 70 most games and still might not even start. That's something I don't really want to be paying 9 million for. If that's João Pedro, I don't really care because it's 5.6 million. It's not the end of the world. I've probably got other players that I can bring in because I've saved money with João Pedro. But Watkins is going to be in a big chunk of that money. And I don't think for me personally, I want to go there if there's that slight risk of him not playing, especially for 9 million. But to caveat that, of course, Tielemans missed a penalty at the weekend. And that could mean that Ollie Watkins regains penalties, which would make him an absolutely fantastic asset. I love penalty takers. It's a game-breaking thing. So yeah, that could maybe sway me back in terms of the Ollie Watkins camp. But of course, we don't know until Aston Villa get another penalty and if Watkins is on the pitch. And, you know, other players as well. Morgan Rogers might become the penalty taker and stuff like that. So we've got to wait and see before we, of course, make any kind of judgment on that one. Next up is going to be Cunha, who has revolutionised my team. Him and Visser have pretty much brought me back from the dead. They just have. They brought me back from the dead. Absolutely in love with Cunha, to be honest. The fixtures coming up as well, the next 5 are tremendous. The goal involvement, 10 so far. His underlying data isn't exceptional. Like, it's genuinely not exceptional, but the predicted points are still there. 17 for him makes him the 3rd highest on this list as well. But it's the fact that, for me, the big thing, I argued this with a few friends in a group chat this week, was he at bonus level, BPS, baseline bonus, before even any sort of attacking actions, this guy's hovering around 12, 13, which usually means if he gets himself a goal, an assist, he starts to creep himself into bonus automatically. And that's not the case with every single player. Ollie Watkins is somebody that his general BPS level is really low because he's missing quite a few big chances. Obviously, he's not as creative as Cunha. He's pretty much the heart of that attack as well. So realistically, if Cunha starts to get one attack in return, he automatically is heading into bonus points, which is additional points for doing not too much, you know, just doing his job and scoring the goals. That's why I'm a big fan of him. It could be even a captaincy option if you wanted to go down that route this week as well. So yeah, big fan of Matheus Cunha. Delap, I had to include him in here because of the fixtures. 4 greens coming up for Ipswich in the next few weeks. But for me personally, I've not been a Delap fan all season. His minutes are too sparse at the moment as well. 7 goal involvements. I don't really see him probably picking up a few more. He's got the worst expected goal involvement on this list as well, and the lowest predicted points as well. So I'm not going to recommend him. He was the one that I know a few people probably would have said, where is Delap? But yeah, for me, not going to be one of those players that I would be looking at. Evan Nielsen, I'm a big fan of his. Back-to-back 90s as well. Has seen decent minutes. Again, could be one that could see a little bit of rotation around the busy festive period. Only 5 goal involvements so far, but decent underlying data. Unfortunately, he has missed a penalty and now looks like he's lost them. So that's a little bit of a bummer and probably ranks him below João Pedro, Cunha, in my personal opinion. But I'd probably say him and Welbeck are on par. Havertz was benched mysteriously at the weekend. I tried to find a reason why. I couldn't see anything. So if somebody knows anything on that one, let me know in the comments section. But as we saw with Saka and the Arsenal defenders, there are some absolutely cracking fixtures coming up for Arsenal over the next few weeks. At 8 million, if you want to keep obviously some value within the striker line, if you're looking to get back to Haaland a little bit later, he could be an okay option, but the predicted points from Fantasy Football Hub are looking pretty dire. And then finally, Alexander Isak, yet to play in game week 12 at the time of me recording. I'm just going to quickly make sure that he's in the lineup for tonight as well before I obviously go on some rant about him. So let me quickly check that one, make sure he's in the lineup for tonight. Let's have a quick look. He's in the lineup for tonight, so we can obviously go on a little bit of a ramble about Alexander Isak. So yeah, obviously he's yet to play, so if he does pick up any injuries or suspensions or anything like that, completely ignore what I'm about to say, but he is one of my favourite pickups. Obviously, the Liverpool fixture in 14 is going to be difficult. We saw in the last section, Liverpool are currently sat as the best team in the league for XG conceded, but Southampton got at them at home, so, you know, maybe Newcastle, they're a pretty good attacking side. Maybe they could find some joy at home against Liverpool, but the Crystal Palace and Brentford fixtures, 2 teams that are struggling defensively so far this season, could be really appetising to go for Alexander Isak. He's also in currently a rich vein of form as well. Something we saw from him last season, and when usually he gets in these good runs, he is pretty unstoppable. That, of course, was the FPL Experts video. Let me know what you think of my Experts picks down in the comment section below. Of course, if you've got any questions about your team as well, get them in there. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in Game Week 13.